Okay, everybody got the got my little slideshow up there?
Yep.
Okay, so
Looks good.
yep. So we've been talking about expeditions, DXing, contesting, and this was kind of my final thoughts as far as putting this all together. And that's to talk about ham radio awards. And it's kind of been kind of interesting. I think I've mentioned, we've all seen where, you know, our solar flux index is starting to come up, our sunspot numbers starting to come up, and actually solar flux index coming up. The last 4 days have really been exciting there to see 10 meters finally opening up. When you see, generally when you see 10 meters starting to open up consistently, and it's not quite consistent, but that's usually a pretty good sign that we're getting right around the corner for getting some actual decent DX going on. So solar cycle 24 is not predicted to be a particularly good event, but there's some foreplay coming along that kind of shows that it may not be all that bad. It's been pretty exciting. So things started turning around in this last burst of sunspots on Friday. Yesterday was the best on 10 meters that we've seen so far in this cycle. It actually, for us up in the Pacific Northwest, woke up about 9 o'clock in the morning, and we had good propagation till about 3:30 in the afternoon. So pretty darn exciting. So with all this great propagation that's coming our way, how are some ways that we can take advantage of it? And I thought awards and certificates are really cool. So I thought we would talk about that. So let's see, someone still has their mic not muted there. I don't know if it's you, Anthony, or who. But anyway, some people really get a bang out of, you know, playing Candy Crush on their iPads, and they get real excited about that. Well, for me, I get excited about making contacts and talking to new countries and new entities out there. So that's what excites me. Every time I find a new contact, a new country that I can't even pronounce, I always have to look it up on the web, find out where the country is, how big it is, what they import, export. There's a country down that was encapsulated in South Africa, and last month there were like 3 different expeditions that went there and brought it to life. And I had contacts with all 3 of those expeditions. It was really, really exciting to see that. But it's just a little tiny country of about, I don't remember, it's 1.5 or 2.5 million people down there. But anyway, just a little small country. So going to talk a little bit about how to get started in awards and getting certificates. There's many awards that are, so one thing is that, you know, we're always accustomed to hearing, you know, worked all states, Dxcc, but there are many, many other awards and certificates out there that we really don't hear much of. So a lot of other countries have a lot of good participation that gets involved in this. So why do we chase awards? So for me, it's a sense of accomplishments. I'm kind of a goal-driven person. I like setting goals out there and going after those goals. It hones my operator skills. So I have to think about both what we have for propagation, what bands are open, what time of day, looking at gray line. So there's a lot of things that go into my skill set on trying to go after these different entities to take and get into my log. We like to collect things, and me, I got in my ham kit a lot of different awards and different pieces of paper hung on the wall. So I really like hanging that stuff. I'm also a very competitive person. So when it comes to Dxcc, that's really important to me. It's like if you're at a DX ham convention, you know, two guys shake hands. And, well, how many DX entities do you have in your log? And so it's always neat to end up kind of comparing what you've got. Well, I'm still a new kid on the block, so I don't have a lot that some of these real old timers have. Well, we need wall covering. Yeah. So that's what I've been trying to do is get some more certificates so I can hang on the wall. It's kind of a little rite of passage. Learn about people and countries and that are on our planet. So I really haven't worked anything off this planet, but I haven't worked anything off the planet. But I really like talking to people, finding out who they are, what the country is about, what they have to offer. And all of this is just really downright fun. Every time I make a new entity, it's another point of pride for me. And I really like feeling the good vibes that I get from networking something new. So let's talk about, I think everybody knows about, ARL, American Radio Relay League. So they're kind of the premier guys out in the world that have not a real deep award certificate system, but it probably gets the most press and is something that we probably know most about. So we have, and I'm going to break this down into more stuff. So we have this worked all states, that's worked all states in the US, worked all continents. So, we have 7 continents out there, but in this award system, there's only 6 of them that counts. Triple play, we'll get into triple play. That's a deep dive for some really, really competitive people out there. The Fred Fisher Memorial Award. You see the FFMA acronym out there, and a lot of people really don't know what that is. We'll see what that is. And then the Holy Grail out there that every ham out there is always trying for, and that's Dxcc, the Eccentric Club. And also for Dxcc, there's another whole award system there for QRP people. So a lot of times you think of what the ARL has to provide. Now understand there's a lot of other very significant entities out there that offer awards and certificates out there. So if you'd like to look on the QRZ website, there's a whole set of for international people, like going after, there's an international award for worked all states, for Dxcc type awards, worked all continents, grid squares, United States counties, European awards for Masters of Europe, Masters of Asia, Masters of North America. It's nice that they break them down into these various continents rather than lumping things together, because when you lump them all together, that's an awful lot of work, an awful lot of awards out there to take and go after. So I don't know if you've noticed in some of the these are some snippets of some of the QRZ pages, but when you look at some of these guys, you'll see off on the right side, you'll see these little stickers out there that identifies that they have actually obtained those particular awards. And that's kind of their little marker there, their notch on their belt there, showing that they've achieved those things. A couple of things that I kind of look for is that if you look over on the left side there, you see QSL. And it's kind of nice to see where they end up awarding things or where things get logged, like LOTW. I'm always looking for people. I pretty much exclusively use LOTW for my logging. So I'm always looking for people that have that little diamond up there identifying that they're log things on LOTW. Ham Radio Deluxe Log, EQSL, QRZ, going through the Bureau or going direct. And we'll talk about some of these things as we go along. But something to recognize, when you see guys that have a whole bunch of those little multicolor stickers on the right side of their QRZ page, those are pretty significant accomplishments. These guys here, like W1 for Roger, those are really some significant annotations there. And we'll actually see him later on in this presentation. Wharton Certificate. When you talk about awards and certificates, it's mind-boggling to understand and to see worldwide all the different awards and all the different certificates that you can get. I'm constantly getting bugged by the guys in Poland to get involved with their award system and their system, and they have some pretty cool things. But it's kind of neat to see award systems outside the country reaching out to other operators out there, asking them to join and get involved with. So that first bullet list, and if you want, I'll go ahead later on, I'll post that stuff on our email reflector so you can look this up. But that first bullet there for a page, web page, is a real nice overview of some of the stuff that QRZ provides for operation. The next one down there, when you pull that page up, it gets a little bit staggering. There are 39 pages of references, of links, just one-liner links to other awards out there. So you got to, stick that in your pipe and smoke it for a while, because that is massive when you start looking worldwide at looking at all the different awards out there. Pretty big deal. So what do we want to collect? So there's a collection of states, that's US states, there's a collection of counties, countries, and understand that there's a version of this for the Dxcc that and that's not ARL affiliated, that looks at just I believe that they're just the official countries that are listed on this earth. There's the Dxcc variant of that looks at really entities on this earth, and that's a much bigger list. There's continents, islands, prefixes, the first 3 characters in your call sign. There's actually a whole contest to do that. I think a couple of years ago, ARL did a special contest, year-long contest, to see who could get the most grid squares out there. And everybody knows about Maidenhead grid squares. Then there's also zone hunters. There's different zones. You have the CQ zone and you have the ITU zone. The CQ zone is probably the better known, and there's 40 zones out there that are all challenging. In fact, one of the ones I just saw on 40 meters that rolled by a little bit while we were talking was Mongolia. Mongolia is a place that I probably have about 5 contacts. I have yet to get any of those confirmed. So it's been kind of disappointing. I don't know how to get Mongolia confirmed at this point in time without spending a bunch of money. So what bands do we use? We use all the bands, every ham band. There's always some contest out there for us. Most of our stuff gets done on HF bands, but it's not exclusive. The primary bands for most of this meat and potatoes contesting and getting these awards is usually 80 through 10. So that's 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10, but not exclusively to those bands. So we try and maximize high band operations when we have good solar. So those bands like 20, 15, and 10 meters, and even 6 meters, we try and operate on those bands when we have good solar cycle activities. When what we've been experiencing was low solar cycle activity, so then we kind of maximize our activity on the lower bands. And that I've been kind of doing for the last good solid 3 years when we haven't had any solar activity. I've spent a lot of time on 160, 80, and 40 and 30 meters. and I've done some pretty good punching as far as getting worked all states and also finishing up those bands for Dxcc. So let's get into some actual competitive stuff, and I'll probably go through this pretty quickly, and then we'll get back into some other things you need to know as you work into trying to get your awards. So the one that everybody is familiar with is worked all states, and if you're going to get into this kind of processing for awards, this is a good place to start. So if you're a new ham or minimal types of equipment, good place to start. Good place to start. It's administered by the ARL, so that's where you go to find out what all the contest rules. Endorsements are available for CW, QRP, phone, and even EME, Earth, Moon, Earth. There's special awards for Oscar, so that's off satellite digital, for slow scan TV. There's some special endorsements for like 2 meters and 440 and 6 meters and 160 meters. There's also a 5-band. Whenever you see that 5B, that always means 5-band, and those bands that they're primarily talking about is 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. So there's also a special award for 5-band, worked all states. Worked all continents. It's kind of weird in that, we just don't classify Antarctica as being a inhabited part of the Earth, because nobody owns that. It's really set aside for Antarctic. So all we have is the main 6 continents. It's also pretty easy to get if you have a little bit of solar cycle activity. This one's sponsored by the International, what is that, IARU? I don't remember, Radio Union. But it's administered by the ARL. But anyway, that's a good place to try and at least a little bit of DX involved there, but it's also pretty easy to get. Dxcc, that's the DX-Century Club. This is the kind of the premier club that the ARL has really been known for. It was started back in 1946. You must be a member if you're going to end up trying to get any kind of certificate out of that, for Dxcc. Basic Mix award starts with 100 countries on any band, any mode. So if you can get 100 countries out there on any band, any mode, you can pick up your first notch on your Dxcc adventure. So naturally in CW, you can get individual awards for just CW, for phone, for digital. There's also a 5-band Dxcc. So that's 100 countries on 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. It also has, let's see, available with endorsements for other bands. So you can get endorsements like for 160 meters, for 6 meters. So on the countries list, and it's really not countries, it's really entities. There are 340 entities. It's based on political and geographical criteria. So it's not just countries, like you have the Scarborough Reef, you got St. Peter Island, you got all kinds of little tiny entities that maybe are protectorates or belong to some other country, but it's not that country per se. So this list is elastic. You got to remember that it's elastic. Entities come and they go, some multiple times. When you go after this award, at the time that you go for the award, it is based on that current country list. So over time, there has been a total of 400 different entities that were out there. So there's been a bunch of them deleted, But if you look at one guy that has really covered all of his bases, he has got 398 W8KH. I think that was one of the guys that I showed you the scorecard there on the QRZ. But he's also a silent key at this point in time. But you talk about being with the program from the beginning of it and going after all these entities. It's hard to imagine getting that many different contacts, even including those contacts that no longer exist. Dxcc honor roll. This is kind of what you consider to be the holy grail. You always are trying to get to that point. You need to have confirmed contacts of 331 out of the 340 entities out there. And you get a really nice plaque for that. The absolute top end of that, the Dxcc, top of the honor roll, or that means you worked them all. That's 340 entities out there. You get an even nicer plaque out of that. So both the getting the honor roll of 331 and the top honor roll, those are lifetime achievements. Most hams try, most serious hams try for their entire life to get to just that 331 entities out there. I've known, I still know a number of hams that are just shaking their head because of, you know, the poor propagation that we had last solar cycle and the comments about what this new solar cycle is going to be like. And he said, I'm just not going to make it. I mean, this is one of these things that they feel very compassionate about, that they're not going to make that honor roll. And so I was thinking about that the other day about some of my friends, and actually a couple of guys that have recently passed away that didn't make it to the very top. But I had this funny vision in my mind about one of these hams sitting in hospice. You know, hospice is the last chance. That's just before they wrap you in plastic. But he's in hospice, trying to work someone on CW, trying to get that last contact to make that 331 contact, and him yelling at some nurse, give me another shot of morphine, another drip of morphine. I gotta make this contact. But I could just imagine this guy working so hard in his last breath, trying to make that final contact. So we think of the honor roll to be an extreme amount. Think of this. There is yet another layer on top of that called the Dxcc challenge. Tracks current Dxcc entities, so it all has to be in the current list. Basic award starts at 1,000. So this is a 5-band Dxcc. So that means you have to have Dxccs for 5 bands twice over to get 1,000 points. This is where it starts at. Endorsements come at 1,500, 2,000, 25, and 3,000. So think of this, when you're able to cluster in all the different bands, 10 bands out there, all the way from 160 down to 6 meters, that means the top award that you could possibly get is 10 times 340 equals 3,400 points. I can't get my head around it, but the really disturbing point, the last punchline down there, guy in Italy, he's a silent key. He made it to 3,203 points. The best in the US, W4DR, he's also a silent key. The best that he got there was 3,171 points. That is absolutely mind-boggling. I just can't imagine anybody getting into this league of competition and scoring this high. So I thought I'd just set the bar up good and high for everybody to realize how insane hams are when it comes to going after awards and going after trying to get their competition. So this
kind of
is
makes like, Mike, it kind of makes field day and 7QP look like child's play compared to this. You know what I mean?
absolutely, you got it. I mean, the stuff that, you know, us mortals, on what we do with some of our competitiveness, I mean, it is totally child's play. I mean, it's just, you know, like you're just barely out of diapers and still trying to play with little tiny toys. Okay, let's get back to reality. So, Berkdahl zones. Now, these are the CQ zones. There's 40 of those things out there, and that's administered by the CQ magazine. So it's all modes, multi-band, single band, you know, everything out there. You got a 5-band Berkdahl zone award that you can get. So that's 150 zones total, spread across the primary bands out there. So I was kind of surprised, but out of this, it was only listing about 880 AMs worldwide that have worked all 200 zones that have got a full boat for the 5-band Berkdahl zone WAC. Kind of interesting. But one of the really hard ones to get is good old Mongolia. And like I mentioned, I did see that pop up about 5 times on 40 meters as the meeting was getting started. And also they never respond and never provide you confirmation for working Mongolia. Mongolia is zone 23. Another one, Islands on the Air. So this is sponsored by Great Britain, Radio Society of Great Britain. There's 1,200 islands out there. Many of these things correlate with the Dxcc entities out there. Basic award is 100 islands. And you can get awards or credits for increments of 100 islands at a row. Current honor roll is anything more than 750 islands out there. The top score at this out of that 1,200 possible islands is a guy in France. I don't remember if he's still around or not. I know I looked him up, but he's at 1,092. So that's the top score out there looking for islands on the air. So if you go after Dxcc entities, a lot of that will cross over for islands on the air. So if you're a good hard player in Dxcc, very likely you probably will find 100 islands out there that'll give you credits for your award there on islands on the air. So also to watch also for expeditions. A lot of expeditions do these stupid sandbars and out in the Pacific and small islands for activating them. Pretty cool to see all these. And the expeditions, a lot of stuff is planned for the next 2 years. I have no idea if Omicron is going to put a squash on this or not, but the next 2 years, lots of activity for expeditions. Berkdahl prefixes. Okay, so a prefix is the first 2 or 3 characters on your call sign. So this is another one that's sponsored by the CQ magazine. There is an annual contest in March and May. One's for single sidebands, the other one's for CW. So this is a good place to jump in there and rack up your points so you can get your credit, your little placard or little piece of paper from the CQ magazine to get your award. Basic mixed awards are available for working 400 different call signs and prefixes. Got endorsements in increments of 50. Honor roll available at 600 prefixes. That's not too bad, but it's insane to see all the different weird prefixes that you just didn't know existed out there. And also these prefixes are all listed on at CQ Magazine. So they have a website out there that shows up. Currently, the big top dog out there is 9 alpha, 2 alpha alpha. I can't remember where he's at, but he has 6,400 prefixes out there. And I'm not sure what the absolute max of that is, but that's, again, that's pretty insane. Another one is U.S. County Award. So a CA does not mean California. So the U.S. County Award, sponsored by CQ Magazine, 7 award levels starting at 500 in increments of 500 up to 3,077 total. So county hunters. There's a net on 14.336, very popular for if you want to go after track down various counties. This is a really, really popular award for Germany and parts of Europe. They are really, really involved with going after all the different counties in the US. They work really hard at this. So there's about 1,200 hams that have done this more than once. So out of the 3,000, in other words, getting all the counties out there, 3,077, there's 1,200 hams out there that have got this award, and many of these guys, and some of these guys have gone over it twice. They're on their multiple paths of getting these kinds of awards. Again, that's pretty dang serious. Even just going for all the counties in the US. Okay, Cqtx Field Award. This one here is basically a grid square award. You can look at that if you want it up. Want to look to see what goes on. It's just kind of interesting to see how this is. Both state and grid scores get added together. DX Marathon. This is another one administered by the CQ Magazine. This lasts for 1 year, so it's a time-based. So you have to get 340 counties on countries, 340 countries over 40 different zones in 1 year. So this goes from January 1st to December 31st. Awards are based on antennas, power, and a few other odds and ends out there. So the big winner out there is another guy in Italy. At his top score has been 327. So this takes a lot of work, but it is time-based for 1 year. So it gives you some ideas of some of the different complexities or different ways to do different kinds of games out there. So, most of this stuff we've been just talking about for VHF, UHF, for just HF, There's also lots of stuff that goes on for VHF, UHF. So you have a Century Club for VHF, UHF. And this is all based on grid squares. So it's grid squares around you. So it's 100 different grid squares around you that you can talk to and get confirmation to. Endorsements are available in 25 increments. And then there's a breakdown between 2 meters for and 220, 440, 900 megahertz and above. So you can get involved if you're just a VHF, UHF operator for doing this kind of stuff. Wharton Certificates. So by now you should have a good understanding that there are lots of awards and lots of certificates. And what I just went through is just barely scratching the surface. Huge amount. The above list is only a very small fraction of all the awards available throughout the world. So I'll send out some references that you can go out and look at some of the stuff and see if you want to try playing some of these games. Make sure you select it. So how to get started. So make sure you select a good logging program. Logging program is your best buddy out there because that will keep you straight. Many of the good logging programs will actually do the scoring for you. So it'll show you what you have or what you're missing from Worked All States. It'll show you what you have and what you're missing for your Dxcc. And then if you get into many of the more complex stuff, it'll show you that stuff too. So look around for a good logging program. You can collect QSO cards. A lot of people like collecting the old QSL cards out there. Problem with those things, I think that whole process is getting a little dated, but I still every month get a pretty good drop of QSL cards out there. And they're becoming very expensive to send, very expensive to receive. Even when you do receive them, you still have to have a card counter go through there and count the cards to validate that you actually received or that you actually get credit for that QSL. So make sure you consider online logging. Also another highly thing I recommend, a lot of wards, a lot of validation is being driven through Logbook of the World. So that's a really important piece of software out there that ARL has put a lot of money and effort into, and it is paying big dividends. I'm sure it's more dividends than they had any idea that it would pay. EQSL is another online system. They also provide awards. They also provide certificates out there. It's generally not well accepted for QSLs. It's basically a close-in award system within the EQSL, but you know, what the heck, is just another way of passing the QSL cards around the world and also collecting them electronically, and saves a lot of expense. So Logbook of the World, that's a big kahuna out there. It's an online database system for confirmation. It's managed by the ARL, requires digital signature. So that's the big thing as far as preventing cheating out there. It really helps to prevent that kind of cheating. So WAS, Worked All States, Dxcc, UHF, VHF, and WPX, all of those award systems, and there's some other stuff wrapped in there too, all get driven directly out of Logbook of the World. So it's kind of, I think LOTW, I mean, more people are putting more credibility into LOTW. So as things progress, I think it's going to become the logging system for all the future. So strategies. Logging, I've talked about being a big part of your strategy. With a good logging program, you can figure out what you need to do, and it'll drive a lot of your decisions. So working contests, sweepstakes, state QSL parties, looking for countries and looking for states, any of those big contests out there. CQ Worldwide is huge. The ARL DX countries is also a big contest out there that'll give you a lot of meat and potatoes to add to your logging. CQWPX, I mentioned that that's really a contest that's designed for the WPX certification stuff. Use DX, I've talked about packet clusters out there. So use DX packet clusters for doing spotting. So you can actually do filters using that to look for certain either countries, for prefixes, for particular DXpeditions. It's an excellent piece of work out there that helps you take and hone your skills to find the things you need. So try to internet like DX bulletins. There's newsletters out there. There's all kinds of resources if you look around to for subscribing to things online that'll give you hints that things are coming up. There's a Monitor DX website there that will send you announcement SMS messages to your cell phone that says that someone's on the line that you can go after. So there's tons of tools. You know, it's like good old FT8, that JT alert. That is a real piece of work that has really been cool as far as hunting down countries, expeditions, WAS type of stuff. So use those tools. They will pay big, big dividends. So remember, TX just doesn't magically come to you. It just doesn't show up to you. Yeah, you're going to stumble across stuff. You got to be on the air. You got to use the tools to go after that TX out there. So let's wrap it up here. Hunting for awards and certificate is fun and exciting. I get a lot of excitement in finding these weird countries out there I had no idea existed and finding out what they are about. It's just, I get a lot of enjoyment. There are many easy awards. There are some awards that will take you a lifetime to achieve. So start easy, start simple, and then you can figure out how. And also, I highly suggest have priorities, figure out what awards you want to set at your highest priority. But if you don't get the propagation, if you don't get the kind of band activity that you need for that award, have a backup plan. Go to some other type of award that you need to work on and use that strategy. Start with small goals, then build into bigger goals. Once you get a foot into things and you understand what you're trying to do and what you're trying to go after. Using a good logging programs helps to get your accreditation. It is really, I can't underline that enough. Everything revolves around that logging programs as far as your decisions, where to look and what you need. Because it's fine to know what you have, but what you're looking for is you need to look for what you don't have. And that good logging program will tell you what you don't have. That's what you need to go after. Contests, the expeditions will help add to those awards. Really, really help too. Use tools like DX clusters, JT awards, monitor DX websites, DX World out there will send you SMS messages telling you what's cooking out there, what's trending. Yeah, what's trending out there on the ham world. Many international awards don't get fixated on just stuff that goes on here in the US. There are really many high quality stuff that happens internationally. Have fun and be competitive. Show and tell people what you have achieved. It's always good to share with people all your achievements out there, because it's really nice to be able to come into really a nice little gathering and be able to brag about the things that you have done on the air as far as getting your awards. Anyway, that's it, folks. Any questions or anything that you'd like to talk about there?
Thanks, Mike. That was informative.
You're very welcome. And hopefully it kind of got people thinking about, there's a lot of different facets of ham radio. And this is just another little niche out there that I find a lot of enjoyment out of. And I think other people can kind of blend in with that too.
I have a question for you, Mike.
Sure.
As you know, I've changed locations a couple of times in my ham radio career. Can I add all of my contacts together, or do I have to only do it for a location? And that's almost, and the flip side of that coin is with Logbook of the World, do I have to have two different keys or something to do that with, or is it just all one?
Okay, so this is kind of how I understand it. I've done a lot of things with other clubs. I've done expeditions, all of which use a different call sign. I cannot aggravate those calls into my personal call sign. From what I understand is that if you use your call sign, you're given, I think it's, and you need to look it up to verify it, but the last time I looked, it was 50 miles. You're within 50 miles of your home QTH. So in other words, if you're doing something remote and that remote is 50 miles close to you, you can aggregate, you can use those QSOs and put into your main repository for it. Outside of that, then it needs to be in a separate repository. So on EQSL, I have, my main repository. I have another repository out there, another certificate of authority that has all my Grenada contacts out there, so I can look through that. And I have other places I've been that have been outside of that 50-mile radius, like a lot of stuff I do up in the mountains, I can't use. So there's another repository for camping stuff out there. So that's in a separate repository that has its own certificate of authority off of EQSL.
Thanks.
Or not EQS, but off of Logbook of the World.
Yeah, there is a mechanism through both EQSL and Logbook of the World to identify contacts as being from, like for worked all states. You can say only qualify these, only use these contacts towards worked all states, and are under, you can have multiple profiles. So like I have separate worked all states listings for my home Qtx, which would include anything I do in Corvallis because that's within 50 miles. But then I have a separate one for the Walton Lake 7QP location.
Any other good questions? So thank you, everybody. Back to you there, Anthony.
Well, thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks everybody else for coming out. And just one last call. Anything else before we start wrapping things up? All right. Hearing none. Hope everybody has a good Christmas and Happy New Year. And we will see y'all again. Same bat channel, same bat place, and same bat time in January. So look forward to seeing y'all then.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yep,
Happy New Year.
ditto.